Every brother was caught in the crossfire. Was caught in the crossfire.
To say that Bernado wasn't handsome would be an absolute lie. He was tall, dark, handsome, and young women in the village never hesitated to try to impress him when there was some social event taking place. On the weekends, there was always some function to attend. He danced with such precision and skill. Young women swooned as he held their hand and led them onto the dance floor. His father wasn't fond of his gigolo ways and warned him that it would all catch up to him someday. "I did not raise you to entertain beautiful women like you do. You're reckless, and I have no intentions on defending you when their fathers come looking to hold you responsible for your behavior." Word reached Bernardo that there was going to be a party several blocks away from his house, and he made immediate plans to attend. He took great care to dress in a crisp shirt and tailored pants. His shoes were polished, and his hat was pristine. He already knew women would be hounding him for a dance, or to possibly spend the night with him. Young ladies didn't care about his reputation. They just wanted a chance to impress him and be the woman who stole his heart. The night was electric and alive with so much excitement. Outside of the venue, people sold candy, flowers, and cigarettes, and fried delicacies. He stepped into the party, and he had a great time dancing the night away, but no one in particular stood up to him. Once the party was winding down, he decided to head home. It was dark, and the streets were now desolate. All he could hear were crickets, and he wished he had a pretty young woman to walk home. As he turned onto the street next to St. Peter's Church, he saw a gorgeous woman standing in front of the church. His heart nearly skipped a beat. He didn't recall seeing her at any point in the night. He straightened his tie and walked up to her. He introduced himself and asked, "Why are you here all by yourself?" She explained that she thought there was going to be a service but was mistaken and was headed back home. He asked her where she lived, and she said she didn't live too far. "Can I accompany you to your house?" She smiled and agreed. They strolled to her place. They chatted about all sorts of things, and immediately he felt a connection. "Is anyone at your place right now?" He was happy to hear she lived alone. Oh yeah, tonight was the night. He was going to do all it took to spend the night with her. At last they were at her house. She walked in and lit a lantern. He sat in the living room and she slipped into something more comfortable. He was excited. She emerged from her room and sat with him. She poured him a glass of moonshine, and he gulped it down. After his third drink, he was ready. She stood up and walked to her room, and he followed her. He sat on her plush bed and began to pull off his shoes. When he finally straightened up, he fell back on the bed and stared up at her ceiling in anticipation. He closed his eyes. His eyes remained closed as he waited, but several minutes passed and she didn't join him on the bed. He felt a bit uncomfortable with his feet hanging off the bed. So he opened his eyes and found himself staring up into the night sky. It startled him. He bolted up and found himself outside. The crickets chirped as he tried to figure out where he was. What he sat on was cold and hard. His heart began to race. How did I end up out here? He quickly remembered the drinks and figured, in his drunken stupor, he went out to find her outhouse, but he passed out. He sat up and found that he wasn't in the house. Where the hell am I? Horror filled his throat when he realized he was surrounded by headstones and tombs. He found his shoes and quickly slipped into them and looked for a way out of the cemetery, thinking to himself, how did I get here? He made his way out onto the street and he began walking. But then further up, he saw a dark figure. Great. Some idiot left their bull to run wild in the streets. So he tried to slip into the shadows so the bull couldn't see him and possibly chase him down. The thought of being impaled sickened him. He tiptoed as far as he could, but it was too late. The bull spotted him. There was no time to think. Just run. He felt like he was running in slow motion. His legs felt heavy, and there was no place to hide. Abruptly, the bull stopped, like it was taunting him. He couldn't afford to stop. His senses were heightened, and he could hear the bull gaining on him. He turned just in time to see the bull lowering its head to impale him, and everything went dark. When he opened his eyes again, it was still dark. He stood to his feet and found that he wasn't injured, but his shirt was torn, and he lost his shoes in the process. He looked around wildly and saw his father sitting on the porch smoking a pipe. Get your useless self in the house and go to bed. This is the last time I sent anything to bring you home.